Rolling.
Here we go.
Rolling,
We're back.
Rolling.
We're in it.
We're in it, dude. We're here.
And
I'm less sick.
23. You're
I'm
not
less sick. I'm not super sick. My voice sounds a little bit, but it's just because it was work yesterday.
Dude,
but
my youngest lost his voice this weekend. It was so sad.
No,
he was
for
just
real?
Like,
Oh.
I was like, dude. It was the first time that's ever happened to him.
Oh, little guy.
And like he just didn't understand, so he kept trying to just like talk through it, but his poor little voice was like, and Zion was like, "Why does his voice sound like that?" But
yeah, man.
Yeah, it is. We know a lot of, especially young people, young babies. And this past weekend, it's going around. It's that time of
for
year.
sure. It is that time of year. We had a lot of families that were sick.
If you're a parent with sick ones, we
especially just hung out with a bunch of family for Thanksgiving, and everyone's like trading their germs and yay.
So if you're in that, we're with you. We're praying for you.
Yeah.
And may the Lord provide expedient healing for you and your household.
Come on, somebody.
There's nothing worse than having sick littles, dude.
It is the worst.
And it just begins in a cycle. And
yeah. And it's the worst when you're sick and your littles are sick.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, you can't take care of them. That's why moms don't get sick.
Dude, yesterday we were here at church, and I was with a buddy of mine, and we're in the backyard, and like one of the like kids is like it's not his kid, it was like a friend's kid or whatever. But the kid sees him and runs over to him. He's like, "Hey!" He like bends down to pick her up, and right when she gets him, she's
just right.
we're just dying. We just started dying because it was like so cute, but also just like man. Yeah, dude, you're infected, bro.
You're infected. Oh gosh, man, I never cared about really sickness or being around sick people until like COVID, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, you just sneezed by me.
Yeah,
what you got?
I don't care. I didn't care about it until I had kids because I was like, I didn't want to get in the house.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Just I'm like, whatever. I'll get. My body is all good, but then you're like, well, then my kids get sick, my wife gets sick, and then it's never fun. But it's the jam, dude. December, and in SoCal, baby. Yeah,
come on,
which is crazy.
Oh, it's wild, dude. Where did November go?
I know.
It's almost like it's 25 days to Christmas or whatever.
Yep.
Dear
We're officially
Lord.
in the Christmas season.
Yep.
Man, how sweet is it? I'm just gonna random shout out, but how sweet was it Hunter leading
come let's adore him.
And service like that, dude. That was so good.
That was so good.
So good. But yeah, I think what's interesting, we get into Christmas time, and oftentimes, at least amongst a lot of churches, we start getting into seasons where talking about giving, different things like that, and that's coming up for us as well too. But it also just so happened, like this wasn't planned, but
right,
is where we land in Acts.
Yeah,
we had you gave a sermon, a message this weekend where there was a lot of just overlap with giving and provision and us for a church, how we view money, and then individually how we view money as well too, right?
Yep.
And so that tithing money conversations in church always go. People are either on one side of on one side of the fence,
or the other.
They're all for them and they're cool. And they're like, no big deal. And then for some people, it's like you see people start to squirm in service and walk out of service and write some nasty emails. And so
it's so crazy, dude. Like, I mean, it just shows how attached to money, we are.
Sure.
But yeah, like, I was thinking about that. So, we have for those that don't know, maybe you're kind of newer to Rhythm, every year we do a legacy offering. It happens in December. And it's basically our offering that helps us, like, it's above and beyond whatever your normal giving is. Right. And it like helps us like take on some different projects this next year that regular budgetary allowances wouldn't allow for. So, but anyways, not having planned this weekend to be this weekend, where I talk about giving within the next 2 weeks, we're not going to talk about it as much, but we are going to be giving. It's crazy how throughout the book of Acts, like certain passages have landed at the right times.
Yeah.
Like even for Easter, it was the conversion of Saul. Mm-hmm. There was just all these I was talking to another pastor about it. It's like I didn't plan any of this. It's not like we laid out Acts them, and then for this
that is not our leadership style.
No, that's not our leadership style. Yeah, our creative team wish it was. That's for sure, but not. I just can't. So, anyways, for it to line up like that was pretty awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, but yeah, there is a lot of I don't want to say, I mean, there's a lot of controversy around giving in church, especially with, very, very wealthy pastors. There's a lot of mistrust. But, I think honestly, like a lot of it just is a misunderstanding and a poor teaching of it for so long.
Sure.
Yeah, even looking at some of the ways that maybe like the prosperity gospel is taught, it is very much a Greco-Roman way of giving, which we talked about this week, to where you give to get.
Right.
And there is in 2 Corinthians 9 where it talks about like those who sow generously reap generously.
Right.
Because if you really just look at money as like a seed,
Yeah.
where you put it matters. I talked a while ago about us not being consumers, but we're contributors.
Yeah.
And we have to look at our money as we are contributing to something. So I even, like, just kind of personally, I was looking at like, okay, where are the places I buy from? Where's my money invested in, and what's that money's invested in? Is my investment firm, are they investing in things or in, maybe companies that could be a little bit sketch as far as like our values and stuff goes.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's pretty. I mean, you can go down a deep rabbit trail.
Sure.
Of money and all of that, but I think it just comes down to poor teaching within the church on money, which has hurt people. Has the history of it just in general is crazy, but I don't. But really, when it comes down to, I don't think we just don't, as the body of Christ, have a really good firm foundation of how this all originates and kind of where we are today. So that's why people can look and say, well, we don't have to tithe. Or people can look and say, well, in the New Testament, you don't give. Or then other people would argue, well, in the New Testament, giving is like selling your house.
Right.
And because it's generous and extravagant. And it is all of those things. Ultimately, you don't have to tithe. By the way, tithe just means a tenth. So 10% of your income.
Certainly not like a salvation issue.
No, it's not a salvation issue.
And that kind of stuff. And
no, it's not. It's not. But I do believe it is a hard issue.
Sure.
And people, and it's so funny too, because you can talk to somebody on all different issues, whether it's money or sexuality or gossip, whatever the sin issue might be, right, or whatever the issue might be, sin or not, and give them such a clear explanation, and they'll walk away and do the same thing that they've always done and want to do.
Right.
So I know that in a lot of these, especially like on a Sunday like this last week, when you're teaching on money, some are like, yeah, and some are moved and are like, all right, I do need to start giving, and others like, nah, I'm going to throw that message out.
Yeah.
Totally. Even though we just kind of walked through it.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we've gotten really good in a lot of areas, all areas. We can justify our position no matter what, and so for certain people, wherever they fall on that, on this issue, there is someone online or somewhere that will affirm your stance and your belief or your position, and it's easy to kind of justify, and even from like someone who is a Christian, someone who's like, hey, I'm a Christian, I believe total opposite about this issue or whatever, which is it's interesting because it's like, well, where are we, where that begs the question, where are we getting influence from, and who are we allowing to influence us and what we believe in our behaviors, right? Is it people with following? Is it people with smooth talk? Is it people, are they using scripture? And again, we can all, the people, sometimes people will use scripture and again, use that to, justify their belief system. And
exactly.
So I think you hit it on the head, at least for me. I try not to oversimplify things. This is a hard topic for me, just because I grew up with it. It's such ingrained in me that it's kind of like when you're talking to somebody like some people, alcohol is like, I can't step into a bar.
Right.
Some people are like, whatever, right?
Yeah, right.
And you just have, and both those legitimate ends of the spectrum. This is kind of like one of those things for me. I'm like, man, this seems, basic, because from the time I was a 4-year-old and went into Bible, Sunday school, my parents gave me money and was like, you're putting this in the bin. So for me, I'm like, but I do think from my experience of being around church and ministry for 30 plus years of my life, It's a hard issue. I
Yeah.
think a lot of it comes down to, and I think that's why you justified it one way or another, because in your heart maybe it's not settled, or it is,
Sure,
maybe
yeah.
it is settled, but
Yeah.
like a lot of it I think comes down to a heart posture. I think there's a lot of really helpful conversations around disciplines and around, your church and what they do with it and stewardship.
Right,
I think
right.
those are all super, like, really good, needed conversations to be had. But I do think there's an element that comes down to, just your heart posture and how you view giving, how you view money,
Right.
and then how you view giving. I love that you talked about. It was kind of towards the end. I know in different services you got to expand on some of it and you didn't. But I love that you said, it was one of the slides you said, does your giving reflect a kingdom mindset or a Greco-Roman?
What kingdom does your giving reflect?
Yeah.
Are you Greco-Roman?
Yeah.
Are you Jewish? Or are you Christian? Or are you gospel, basically? And that kind of goes back to, again, so understanding giving in general, like just from a biblical perspective. I talked a little bit about this, but it's been around since the beginning.
Absolutely.
Genesis chapter 4.
Yeah.
The first offering is made, Cain and Abel. I went into that, so I won't get into that here, right? But then you see Genesis 14, it's Abraham and Melchizedek, and he gives him, a tenth of all he has. Later, Jacob, same thing. This is all pre-law, right? So it's not like it went away with the law.
Right.
And so then you get into, so anyways, they've always gave offerings, or the spoils of their wealth, all that stuff. Then you get to, like, they're in Egypt and they're in slavery. There's no temple. There's like, they don't even know what they're doing, really, right? And as far as like religion goes, they're keeping it somehow, like it's through story and all that stuff. It's story, song. I know how they kept it, anyways. But now moving forward, they're coming out. It's the Exodus. They're in the desert. Moses has to give them these laws, which teach them how to live as a culture, how to serve the Lord, how to worship the Lord, all that different stuff. And part of that is, again, tithe. Yeah. He's putting it into them and there was actually 3 tithes, right? Like the Levitical tithe, which took care of the temple and the priests, or the tabernacle at the time. And then there's the tithe for the poor, and there's the festival tithe. There's all of this stuff, right? That equals out to be about 23% a year. Yeah. And so that's just what they had. Yeah. It was a mechanism, and there were times that they struggled with it and didn't do it, and the Lord corrects them in Malachi over it. And then and then we get into, like, now it's like, okay, yeah, but and even Jesus himself, when he's rebuking the Pharisees, says, you give a tenth of all this different stuff. He named spices because they were so religious about making sure that their tithe was their tithe.
Right.
He goes, but you neglect taking care of people.
That's right.
So, like, he goes, you should do the former and also do the latter.
Right.
So Jesus himself goes, you should tithe.
Yeah.
Right. And now, again, to be clear, the tithe at that time was all going to the temple in Jerusalem. But they also had synagogues out within their little communities and stuff. And so they would tithe to their, and this is like historical, right? They would tithe to the temple, but then they would also give to projects in their local synagogue. So now people get saved. So Jesus dies, resurrects, boom, the people get saved. And now in Acts chapter 2 through chapter 4, you see that God's grace is on them. They're selling homes. Barnabas sells a field, and they're doing it to take care of the people that are there from the other nations that were there for the Feast of Weeks, that they get saved, and they're sticking around. There's revival in Jerusalem. And people, like, generosity, that's a mark of revival. And so you see it. People start to give freely. But let us notice, they didn't hesitate to sell things to take care of things. Right. They just were like, yeah, all right, we're down. Right. Like, God's doing something. Let's roll. Yeah. Then now you get into the church. Now, but they would give and they would put the apostles' feet for the apostles to distribute. Right. So they wouldn't take that money and go, I see Jim over there's kind of struggling. Here, Jim, here's some money. Right? No, they would do it at the apostles' feet, and the apostles would then distribute it based on wisdom, Holy Spirit, etc. Then you have on top of that, they are taking care of the widows.
Right.
There's the argument that breaks out between the Grecian widows and the Hebraic widows. And then they have to choose the 7 to help disperse and do the ministry of all of that stuff. But you still see that more than likely at this time, the Jews are still tithing to the temple, but then giving above and beyond to the work of the ministry that is taking place. Because again, Jewish people did not stop being Jewish when they got saved. They're still Jews.
That's right.
So, just as like kind of like a quick history, if you will,
sure.
so that we can understand how we got here as a church, right? So they're never like quit tithing. This is horrible. They were never like. As a matter of fact, they gave, part of the reason why they gave to the apostles as opposed to just giving to whoever is because when you're living in a community like that, there was like kind of like rules and not necessarily boundaries, but things that were set up for who got what and why. You actually read about that later when Paul is instructing Timothy on who gets what as far as help, like what widows actually are in need and what, like, hey, if they're young enough to marry, they should do that and not be a burden on the community.
Wow.
I wish I had the exact scripture reference, but like there was these things that you had to meet in order to get welfare basically from the church, which I believe the church should be so well funded.
Yeah. Come on.
That because people are giving, that we should be able to not just give benevolence every once in a while, but even have like a system, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't think we need to be necessarily dependent on the government for that, but that's whatever. So then you have Paul, what we just read about, teaching the Greco-Romans, the Gentile believers, basically about giving now. He's doing it via this offering that they're taking in Jerusalem. First day of the week, set aside money in proportion to your income. It doesn't say pick amount, pick the number, any number, you know. And so he says, like, this is what you do. So this is what he taught to the Macedonian churches. Now, note it, you don't really see in any of his epistles him explaining to the Macedonian churches, this is the proportion or whatnot. So what we would then
extrapolate.
Extrapolate is that more than likely he's taught them the tithe.
Yeah.
In keeping with, this is what we do.
Jewish customs.
These are the customs of giving.
Right.
When it comes to the Lord. This is how we worship the Lord. This is ministry unto the Lord, which he even uses this and the same Greek word there. Okay, so this is ministry unto the Lord. So here's your proportion. This is what you give. By the way, and when he's writing to Corinth, and this is, people like flip this all the time. When he writes to the Corinthian church in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, he's being kind of a little bit like, not sarcastic, but a little bit jabby at him. He's like, I'm going to test the sincerity of your love, because you all were like, oh, we're going to give big, and then you didn't, type thing.
Right.
And then he says, God loves a cheerful giver. Each one should give what he's decided in his heart to give.
Right.
If you're generous, God will allow you to be generous on all occasions. He starts pulling out Proverbs and stuff. So that whole thing isn't like our in or our out on how to give. It's Paul being like, this is how you guys need to give.
Yeah.
This isn't like, hey, if you can't be cheerful, then don't give. It's like, y'all need to be joyful when you're giving, because you got to know who, and again, from the theology of the Jews, who owns it all.
Yeah.
He does.
That's good.
And so, the system there was set up very much like you would give to the temple of that time. Paul talks to Timothy in 1 Timothy, and he's like, hey, the elders of the church, which weren't like a governing board, they were the pastors, he says, are worthy of those who govern the affairs of the church. Those who are preaching and teaching, who are doing it well, are worthy of a double honor. Right. Which is double honor in that time. Honor, time, it actually has to do with currency. It's money. Right. And so that, again, we'd have to step back and go, so Paul has obviously set up in these churches a way to give, a process to give, a thought behind of like, how do we give? So how do we pay our, at that time, our elders or priests or pastors, right? And knowing that Paul is Jewish, it was more than likely the tithing system. Now, it could be tithing and then extra, because again, if he's going to take in a certain amount and tithe to the temple, which by this time things were kind of a little bit up and down anyways. Well, in 70 AD, am I boring? I hope this is boring. No, okay.
No.
Okay, so in 70, I geek out on this stuff, right? So in 70 AD, because of a Jewish revolt, I'm trying to remember the emperor's name. Anyways, I can't remember the emperor's name. He comes in and he destroys the temple.
Right.
So the temple's gone now. Where do Jews go to worship? Where do they go to give? What do we do now all of a sudden? And so that's when you start to see a little bit more of the split within Judaism, where it becomes more rabbinical, pharisaical,
interesting.
Like that's it fractures a little bit in that thing because they don't know what to do now.
Sure.
Like, even our whole sacrificial system is like kind of blown up.
Right.
We don't have our temple. Now, around this same time, so in the Roman Empire, Christians were protected as a Jewish sect. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Well, towards the end of the first century, so I don't know, I'm going to give an era of like 70, 75 AD to like 100, 120 AD. It's somewhere in there. Okay. Since the Romans can no longer charge a temple tax, they start to just tax the Jews, and that money then goes to Apollo's temple and somebody else's temple. So it's like these two Roman gods, right?
Right.
That now their money's going to go to. Well, Christians are like, no.
Yeah.
So what they start to do is they say, hey, we're not Jews. This is how the separation from Judaism and Christianity happened.
Oh.
It was over money.
Wow.
Because they're like, whoa. I mean, it was over other stuff too.
Sure, yeah.
But like that was one of the main things. They're like, oh, we're not Jews, so we don't pay the tax.
Wow.
We're Christians.
Yeah.
But this is where they kind of shot themselves in the foot, is because in the Roman Empire, unless you were an already recognized religion, you weren't protected. You were seen as a superstition. So all of a sudden now, even though they were the lowest rung, so they had already been able to be like, discriminated against and beaten and stuff like that. But even more so now, there was like, oh, you guys have like no legal rights.
Yeah.
That's why when you read, and I read this a while ago, but Pliny the Younger, it's like, what is this superstition that has like wrecked our temples? I got to figure out how to get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
And then he can.
Wow.
Because they're not protected underneath Judaism. And then from there, you start to see the church now begin to operate in, you read from the church fathers, there's a lot of giving to the poor, a lot of take caring of people. Again, so much of what we were founded on, George, is like these beautiful principles of taking care of the unborn, or that they were born but they were trashed, they were like, they value saw value in humanity, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what gender, no matter whatever it was. There was this beauty there with them, and then there was a holiness when it came to sexuality of like man, woman for life, same same faith. Like these were the things that like were foundational for that early church as they were like figuring things out. So the first couple hundred years you have, though, still there is a mechanism of giving. It's still there.
Right.
Because they are taking care of the poor.
Yeah.
And you do have the early church fathers, the bishops. And I mean, at that time, it was the Catholic Church, universal church. And you would give and you would give. And then around the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, giving starts to get kind of weird. There's always been corruption.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is new, right? There was corruption in the Old Testament. There's corruption, but then it starts really getting corrupt. Then the Catholic Church, they will need to raise money. Sometimes I think it was for crusades. They start selling indulgences, meaning that you can pay for your sins.
Right.
And that starts getting weird. But you have a biblically illiterate. You have a biblically illiterate church.
Right.
So they don't necessarily know. But this is why in like a lot of the Orthodox churches, icons are so important. You know, we see like our stained glass, right? And we see like you go into these Greek Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox or whatever churches, and there's paintings everywhere.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because people were illiterate. They couldn't read, but they could see. And so they learned biblical principles and values from these paintings and these pictures.
Wow.
That's why it's so important to them. That's why like they will go in and they will kiss the icon.
Right.
Because, oh, this is the Apostle Paul, and we've learned about the Apostle, but like it's really wild. But nowhere does the church ever stop giving. And then you get into, I mean, now, I mean, if we can just fast forward a few hundred years, more than that, 1,000 years, whatever. So anyways, where we've gotten to now is, again, it is like Christianity as a whole, denominationally and movements is pretty fractured. It's all over the place.
For sure.
And so there's no temple that we necessarily tithe to. There is, it's not necessarily denomination that we give to. But if we go back to what I believe, and again, it is a lot of interpretation. It's a lot of reading between the lines, and it's a lot of like speculation for the most part.
Sure.
But if we go back to okay, man, if we look at how like Paul understanding as he's setting this stuff up in the early church, Peter and those guys, the same thing pretty much. They're all Jewish. They all understand the tithe. They all understand generous giving. This is now they're instructing the Gentile churches to be like. Everywhere Paul goes, he's setting up basically these communities, and they're paying people to lead the church, right? Because if they're paid, then they don't have to worry about doing all the other work. They can actually minister to the people. They can help distribute stuff to the poor, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And so if that was the way it was established and kind of set up, and if we've drifted away from that, I think maybe we get back to it. Now, the thing with, okay, well, where do I give my, like if let's say that people are like, okay, I do want to tithe. Well, where do I give it? Because we don't give it to the temple. It's not this denomination we're part of.
Right.
So I think it goes back then to of your local house of worship, where you do experience community and where you do receive teaching from the Word of God. Where you do get to be a part of serving in that community that does reach the lost, that does feed the poor. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all these things, if we look at like what it is that if the church exhibits it, it's the church then. And I'm a believer in, and then we can get into all this other stuff. And I know you got, and I'll quit talking here in a second, but I'm a believer in that, like, okay, the tithe goes first to the Lord.
Yeah.
I don't direct it. Like again, when Abraham, the first tithe that we see Abraham,
right.
when he gives it to Melchizedek, he doesn't go, look, I want this much over here to go to those people.
Right. I
want this much over here to go to them. And then, Mel, you keep a little bit for yourself, but doesn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
You would see that in other giving. You'd see that in Gentile giving. This has to go to this. This goes to that. So anyways, with the tithe, for me, it's like I give it to the Lord.
Right.
And that's the church I attend. Or, here now at the church I work to, right?
Right.
A church I work to, the church I work at, whatever it means. Yeah. So, but then I do give above and beyond that. And that's where I direct it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's like, okay, that's where I direct it, because for me, the money goes. And even, man, I was even like, when we were going to a church that I didn't necessarily agree with what they were doing, I was still giving because it was the church I was at.
Right.
And I see on my end, I'm giving. You do want to be a good steward. So if your church is mishandling money, you don't be dumb.
Right.
It wasn't like I knew at that time that they were mishandling money. I just thought some things were. But for me, it was like I'm giving it to the Lord, and then they're on the hook.
Right.
They're going to stand before the Lord one day, and the Lord's going to go, excuse me.
Yeah.
what did you do with the, the tithes, gifts, and offerings that your people brought me?
Yeah.
How did you like?
And I believe there is like a very, like there's a real weight to those who are in leadership at churches, because they will have to give account not only for their own, what they've done in their own life, but for the stewardship.
The stewardship, the people they oversaw. James talks about, don't everyone assume to be teachers,
right?
Because you're going to be judged more strictly.
Yeah.
If I'm teaching God's word, and I look back on some of my early messages, I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to get a spanking for that one.
Yeah.
Like, dear God,
right.
But so anyways, for me, that's where it kind of goes back to again. Okay, well, this is what I feel like the Lord has kind of laid out. In all of my study and all of the things. I haven't found anything different.
Yeah.
And honestly, I haven't really wanted to find loopholes of like, oh, now I don't have to give.
Yeah, right.
But so that, and I do believe it's to the storehouse. Now, the storehouse was built during Hezekiah's time on the temple because people were giving so much. Again, when revival broke out, people gave.
Right.
Where everyone's returning the Lord. So they had to build these storehouses. So you bring it to the storehouse, then, the church leadership will distribute. And that's a whole nother kind of like line of thought. But and then anything above and beyond that is okay. Then I can direct it. What we've done though today is even people that tithe, they're like, I direct my tithe. I give a certain amount to my church, and then I give a certain amount to this missionary, and I give a certain thing, and then that's it. And for me, I'm like, well, if I want to give to that missionary, that's not my tithe.
Right.
It's it's not the portion I'm setting aside, as Paul tells them on the first day of the week, to then so he can just grab it when he goes. He doesn't like. There's no memos on all of this stuff. This one has to go to 4-year-olds. This one has to go to the widows. This one has to go. It's like Paul's going to take it. He's going to take it to Jerusalem, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, go for it, Paul, because we're not giving to Paul, we're giving unto the Lord. So
that's such an interesting mind shift, I think, for people. Even just that last kind of thought there is like, I think so many people view the tithe and giving money as giving it to the church and not unto the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's worship.
It is.
And so when you are choosing to not do that, like you're choosing to not worship the Lord with your finances, right?
Yeah.
And we get worshiping with our hands and with song and things of that nature, or even in serving, but also in our finances. And I think that's something that, again, I heard that a lot growing up, but I don't feel like I hear that taught as much as like the idea of the tithe is that it's unto the Lord.
It's unto the Lord, yeah.
And yes, the church at your house, the local church at your local church or house that you're at is the conduit and the is what you're giving through to do that. But as a believer, you're giving unto the Lord, and that's such a different perspective and mind shift than I'm giving to a church.
I'm giving, I'm not giving to a church, or we say we give through a church,
right?
To kind of like help people's things, but really we're giving to the Lord.
That's right.
And then the Lord, like the people that we're connected with distribute, and kind of two things along that. One is, giving in general is good. Like, so, and no condemnation on anyone if they're like, well, I only do give 5% to the church and I give this and that's your conviction. That's cool. And you'll stand before the Lord, and if he's good with it, then you're good with it,
right.
But what's interesting though is how many people give now to, extra parachurch. Thank you. Parachurch organizations that, which I believe, God, I love people. I love, this is going to sound really bad. I do love parachurch organizations.
Yeah.
They were started, maybe we've talked about this before, but they were started because the church wasn't doing its job.
Right.
Now, there are certain things where I look at some of them that have scaled. Convoy of Hope, we can't do what they do.
Yeah.
And so for me, we're not going to send, 5 people over to Jamaica to like help out.
Yeah.
No, we're going to send the money to Convoy where they're crushing it over there. Right.
Totally.
So,
international, I was thinking
Compassion
International.
We don't need to smuggle Bibles in Iran.
Right.
They can do it. Right. There's all of these things that I look at to where they have to where they actually have good purpose,
Right.
and they've been able to scale at much larger rate. Which, by the way, I think again, this is not a blast on house churches or anything like that, but you think about like some of these larger churches in our nation, anyways, people like, oh, the mega church. But what they're doing, the amount of influence, the amount of impact, the amount like Joby Martin, Church 1132 in Florida, that church is gnarly. It's blowing up, and you can hate on them all you want. But their church sponsors more compassion children than like anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
And you're going, well, they're a mega church. Well, but they were able to partner with a parachurch that does something that a lot of us can't do.
Right.
And crushes. Or the amount of money that they just give back to their community.
Yeah.
Or not even just the amount of money, but the amount of good that they do. Like North Coast right here, the amount of work that gets done when they do their weekend of service.
It impacts the city, the county.
The county.
In such an impactful way. Yeah.
So it's not like these guys are evil, but again, it does take finances to do these things.
For sure.
So there's that. So as far, and this is where it can get a little bit sticky. And again, because we even support people like this, right? But if it's a parachurch organization that is evangelistic, that's where I think it's like, no, because the church needs to be doing the evangelism.
That's right.
And we can set up the things to like send people out to get people saved. I don't need to pay somebody, a missionary to go get people saved. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like, again, that's our mission, great, but you don't want to neglect that. That's also our mission.
Yeah.
So you don't want to like what's the word I'm looking for? But pawn off, or not pawn off, but loan out your responsibility to someone else.
No.
And see that as like, well, I guess I'm good now. And it's like, well, no, especially when it comes to evangelism, but also taking care of the poor, needy, widows, orphans. That's something that still should be a part of your everyday life and discipline, even above and beyond if you're still supporting another, organization that's doing that.
You think about like, so again, if it's local, it's like the what we do here locally, we can do here locally.
That's right.
Because we're boots on the ground, we're right here. If there's a tsunami that hits Oceanside, it's not like we're giving to Convoy of Hope and not doing anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
totally.
we're in it. Like we're in this for sure. If it's pastoring and loving and leading people to Jesus here, yes, for sure. And now again, if it's out of our reach, then again it's like then we can send Compassion International, Convoy of Hope, any of those, sure. Outside the bowl, all these ones, right?
Yeah.
Then we like done, but right here, no, we can do something. So we're going to do something. Now, side note, if we're giving to something evangelistically, it's a church plant. Because if you look at statistically, one of the best things as far as growing the kingdom of God is planting a church, and we tend to give the most money to those that are planting in hard to reach areas that need the money to you plant in New York, bro, it's expensive. You plant here at Oceanside, it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
And one last thing before we jump into this. So again, regardless, I know, bro. Like one last thing, Jeff.
We're in it. No, dude. Jumping into it. We're in it, bro.
We're in it. So, and this is, I think, where maybe we could get personal before we get into the other stuff. But I believe, regardless of what it is that you believe, about whether the tithe is for today or not, or blah blah blah, giving is a mechanism. That since Genesis 4, the Lord has given us to keep our hearts in check,
right,
with Him.
Absolutely.
So Genesis 4, right? Cain and Abel. Cain brought some of. People always been like, no, Cain needed to bring a meat offering. It wasn't about a meat offering. It says he brought some of his.
That's right.
But Abel brought his first and fat.
Best. Yeah,
first, fat, and best. Right.
Yeah.
So that's like where it was his heart.
Yeah. And
he goes to Cain. He's like, hey man, sin's crouching at your door.
Yeah.
And his desire is to have you. Where's your heart? Yeah. Jesus, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Don't store up for yourselves treasures here on earth. It's a mechanism for us to continually, it shows me like where I believe my true provision comes from.
Yeah.
It's, shows me that you really can't outgive God, even though not very many people have tried. I do see it as a seed. I do see it as like, I don't see like, again, giving, especially to church, as like, it's my duty. I actually see it as an investment in eternity, which is, having incredible dividends. But it's that thing of, because anytime, George, that I've not wanted to give, it was heart issue, man.
Absolutely.
It was like selfish. It was if I don't give, you know what we could buy?
Yeah, totally.
You know what we could get?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, I think for a lot of people, it might just be good just to give to really get your heart postured right before the Lord.
Totally. Yeah, I think that, man, there's so many good tangents to chase there, but I think that like, just to kind of maybe end where you're at right there, I just, I grew up in a household. My upbringing is actually kind of interesting, but I grew up in part of my life, we actually were pretty well off.
Okay.
And then part of my childhood, we were incredibly poor.
Yeah.
To my parents' credit, like they did, tithing was a discipline in their life. And it reminds me of the verse of the passage where it talks about, I've been old and I've been young, but I've never seen the righteous begging for bread.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, again, maybe say maybe it's not like a law, but I do think it's like, to your point, you cannot give God. God's faithful,
right?
And God is he cares for us.
Yeah.
If he dresses the lilies in beauty and splendor, how much more does he love us? He's thinking about us. And so in putting God first in every area of your life, including your finances, does it mean, we're going to go wild on that kind of prosperity gospel? Does it mean like you're going to have health and wealth?
Yeah.
No, but it does mean that the Lord is taking care of you.
Yep.
And he will sustain you.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in my life. I've seen outlandish and just supernatural solutions come up when it comes to finances.
It's crazy.
In seasons where I remember looking at my parents and being like, our phone bill is about to get turned off. What are you tithing for?
Right.
You know what I mean? As a child, I was like, what do you mean? There's no cable at the house. Like, I don't know how you're, I would like some new shoes. It don't make sense for us to give this money when the bin passes at church.
Yeah.
But like that discipline, when you see it and you see God's provision, especially if you start to look over the arc of your life, and maybe not even in a moment. Yes, there's still hardships and things that happen, but God is faithful and God sustains and God provides.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting right now is that there has been, and I think there's a lot of reasons to why that. Maybe we can speak to that a little bit, but there's so much more skepticism.
There is
in the church, and even skepticism of God and maybe even of his character. And I just, and maybe just, it's hard for me because again, it's like I know I'm speaking to people who maybe are skeptic or maybe just have different backgrounds than me. But what I would tell you is that when you experience it, when you've experienced the provision and the goodness of God, it does change. I think maybe even just your perspective. It's still hard, and there are moments where we give sacrificially, or there's moments even in my life we kind of the same thing. There was seasons we're trying to buy a house, and I'm going like, man, does this make sense? And it's like, okay, but when you've seen it and you surrender and you go, no, this is a priority. This is number one. You see the Lord show up time and time again.
Yeah.
Sometimes in ways that you go, oh, okay, cool. Sometimes in ways you go, what? That was not the way I thought you were going to show up.
Yeah.
And I think when people are kind of driven by their skepticism and driven by their, just lack of faith in God and his character or whatever the case might be, you miss out on that. And so it just, sometimes I think, I feel like when I'm talking to people, sometimes it's like they can't understand. It's like talking to someone who doesn't have kids, and you're like, oh, you don't get it. You don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think this is why you talked about this when we went through Malachi. It's the only place right in scripture where the Lord says, test me in this.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I wonder again, how much just application there is for people to be like, man, just test the Lord in this.
Yeah.
Try giving faithfully for 3 months and just see. Because I think there is an experience. And also, again, there's so many tangents here, but I think it's interesting because Jesus talks about money a lot.
A lot, dude.
A lot.
Bro,
and so it does. I think the Lord understands. I think Jesus understands that money, probably like sexual, sexuality, and
Yeah.
are some of those things. They hold an extra tight grip on our heart,
Bro.
in our soul and our spirit, right?
Yep.
And so I think even the Lord is like understanding and like, okay, I understand this is hard for you. Test me in this.
Yeah.
See, won't I prove myself, my
Open
character,
the floodgates of
and
heaven.
open the floodgates of heaven.
Yeah, bro.
And
That's not it.
and so, sometimes, man, I just look at people, or as I'm talking to people, and I just feel a sense of grief of like, oh, you just haven't tested the Lord and seen His goodness. Because I think when you have and you've seen it time and time again, there is a different level of like, okay, yes, it's still hard. I'm not saying and it's some things I struggle with in my own life in the sense of like, well, it's automated for me. Is this really?
Sure. Oh yeah, the automated thing. The
okay,
automation
right.
thing.
Like
Actually,
this,
I was asked about that.
I struggle about
Yeah.
that sometimes in my own life.
Yeah.
But what I can't deny though is I've seen the goodness and the fullness of God time and time again. And so I have a level of trust there that even when it is hard, I know God's character. Even if I'm giving to something, and this has happened. This isn't like, but even though I'm giving to something wrong, I'm like, I'm not sure. I see it as I'm giving to the Lord, and I see it as I trust God.
Yeah.
And that overrides even, again, I don't have a great sense of skepticism in this area, but I get that overrides that skepticism, or it overrides that season where I'm like, oh, this is hard. Like, what if this month I did, and it's like, no,
Right.
the Lord provides, and He's my source. And so, yeah, man, there's so this topic is so incredibly there's so many layers.
Yeah.
It's nuanced. Someone say nuanced, but there's so many different kind of things I know people deal with and struggle with, or whatever, or have questions about. Right. The thing I think about a lot right now, especially for us as a church, is we have a lot of people who didn't grow up in church. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
which was me. Yeah.
They have preconceived notions, or they have, they come in with skepticism, or they just don't know.
Right.
Right. They didn't have parents at, whatever age giving them money and telling them this is just what we do. Right. So I always want to be sensitive and be like, okay, let's make sure, we want to teach people. And I think there is an element of teaching people and helping explain. I mean, you went through it, right? And there's lots of sources too for those. I was just watching a video the other day from Wes Huff, and he actually verbatim kind of hit a lot of the same things that you just did.
Okay. Right.
But so there's a lot of different sources to learn about this stuff. But then I think again, there is also a conversation though just about our heart and our posture, and do we see it? Do we see our money as our money?
Sure. Or
do we see it as the Lord's money that He's allowing us? One of the best things I heard, this stuck for me as a kid all the time, was that 100% of it is the Lord's.
Yeah.
He's asking for 10 and giving you 90.
Yeah.
What a great deal.
That's a great deal. That's a great deal. Tell me, I mean, the government doesn't even do that for us.
And so I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like the Lord it's all of it's the Lord's, and He's giving me 90. Okay.
Yeah.
The 10%, actually, how can I give Him more? How can I, you know what I mean? Like, and so, but when we see it as our money, or we see it as ours, and we don't see it as a stewardship thing, I think that I think it becomes.
Well, the whole idea of, especially in 2 Corinthians 9, of those who sow sparingly reap sparingly, those who sow generously reap generously, and it goes on to say, that God will give you supply to be generous on all occasions. It's that thing of like, if you really are basing your own economy on the Lord, you're trusting Him, and if He sees that like those who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. And as opposed to you just kind of hold on to it for yourself all the time. And I mean, you might have the ability to make wealth, and you can make wealth for yourself, and that's great. But it doesn't mean that, like, we have to understand that, again, money is morally neutral, but what we do with it makes it good or bad.
Yeah.
And I want my money blessed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you said something yesterday. You said we expect the Lord to bless more God. We expect more God to bless what we keep than what we give.
Yeah, we want God to bless what we keep, not what we give.
And that was so good because that is the element of like how much of our prayers are bless. I want to buy this car. I want to buy this house. I want to go on vacation. And we don't even do we even second guess asking the Lord to bless, multiply,
Yeah.
and increase our ability to give and sow into the kingdom?
Yeah.
And again, so much. I think again, it just highlights again that so much of us think of money as ours.
Sure.
And so, well, bless me, bless what I have.
Man.
Bless my wallets.
Bless my wallet. I mean, so like thinking about, again, because you brought it up, we have so many people in our church that are newer believers, or maybe that were nominal believers for a while, but they're lit up now, they're revived, they're kind of ready to go. I didn't get saved till I was 18, almost 19 years old. When I came into the church, like I thought, like you drop a 10 every once in a while, whatever. And then it was like, man, I'm overcome with generosity right now. I'm going to give $100. You feel good about yourself, which is, I mean, it's actually dopamine hits and stuff, but you're kind of doing it for your self glorification. Mm-hmm. And then I actually went through a time where I was like, I heard some really kind of weird teaching on tithing. It was like, you're cursed if you don't. I was like, that doesn't sound right. Mm. And I was like, I don't think you need to give to a church. And I kind of got on this kick in my late teens. I got saved in my late teens, but anyways, around that time, I was like, I'm not gonna give. Church just wants your money. Like, what the heck?
Right.
And of course, there was some really weird stuff that growing up, like where there was big scams and all that. So I had that in my mind, and I was like, And then I realized either I just had a heart change or heard a good teaching on it. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. Mm-hmm. This is just what we do. And then Erin and I got together, and Erin was like a tither, and she's like, no, this is what you do. I was like, okay, this is what we do. And so we've always, it's so funny, man. We've always done it. And then there was a season where we were so broke because of trying to do ministry and go to like Bible college and all these other things. We tithed off of gift cards that people gave us because that was like income for us. Yeah. And we still don't do that, but like at our time, that was like, that's income.
Yeah.
And so like we get a $20, Vaughn's gift card. $2. We were finding $2 to give that week at church. And never once did we go without.
Yeah.
Never once did we go hungry. Mm-hmm. I've got stories, George, of random checks in the mail. I've got stories of crying out to the Lord face down on my green shag carpet in my little 2-bedroom house in Marysville, Washington. Lord, I don't know what we're going to do. And then, hey, it's like the Lord told me to give this to you as a check. Yeah. Having a couple come into, because we somehow were able to, like our first year of marriage, squeak into a house, bought a house. I was working full-time construction at that time. This before ministry was really taking off, but like take us back and say, hey, the Lord told us to pay one of your bills. And we're like, okay. So we write down like some bills, and they go, hey, we noticed that your mortgage isn't in here. And I was like, well, we don't expect you to pay our mortgage. I think it was maybe like $900 or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, put it in there, dude. Mortgage goes in there. What do they pull? The mortgage.
Wow.
And they paid it for us, for like 1 or 2 months.
Wow.
And then like just story after story, the fact that we've been able, that the house that we rent here in the last 14 years has only been raised in rent $600 total. Which is a miracle.
Okay, for sure. Yeah.
Like that's God. That's like absolutely. Faithfulness. Like you start to view these things differently, as opposed to, well, that's an anomaly that my landlord hasn't done it. No, I go, no, that's God.
Yeah.
That's us being faithful. That's us saying, hey, you know what? Because here's the other thing that people do is you can still be a broke tither because you're a bad budgeter.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, you know. Yes. You probably knew in your early 20s, right? So you can still do that, right? So, so that's not always the thing of like, well, I started tithing, but then I went and bought a motorcycle and a boat, and I can't afford it in my life. And you're like, well, you shouldn't have bought a motorcycle and a boat. Pick one. I don't know. But so anyways, it makes you just hyper aware of what you're doing with the Lord's finances. It's super good. And you really, again, you just see the Lord's provision through all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And and again, for those that own businesses out there that have good character and good witness and are generous with their business, I've seen you really just can't outgive God there either. So it's funny. People will be like, man, we gave this much amount. So it was like almost like there was a couple of things where it'd be like a sacrificial gift or whatever.
Right.
And then they're like, and then we got 4 clients that tripled that amount. Dude, okay, I've got one thing, and then we can especially want to get into this. So I was speaking at a church one time, and I was doing it kind of as a favor. Church was down and out, and the Lord told me, hey, I want you to, whatever they give you as an honorarium, give it back. And I was like, and again, this is where it's a heart thing, because I was like, Lord,
Right.
man, I drove up here. That's gas.
Yeah.
That I went kind of through all this stuff. It's my time. I took time away from here, and then the Lord was like, really? Come on, man. And especially because it probably wasn't gonna be that much, whatever. And so I was like, all right, Lord. So boom, I get the check. I was like, hey, man, like the Lord wants to. He goes, well, you have to then mail it back to us. I was like, okay, fine. So I had to go through this whole rigmarole. I couldn't just hand him the check back.
Wow. Yeah.
I had to go through, cash it, write a check, send it into their church, do the whole thing. And again, it's like, and also too, at that point, like a lot of those like little things here and there were helping us live.
Right.
Because, this area ain't cheap. And then a month later, dude, I got a speaking engagement for the amount that would have been the tithe of. So the amount that I tithed times that by 10 is what I got my speaking engagement for. I was like, all right, God.
Yeah.
I see you.
And I think what's interesting too, again, because maybe one day I'll talk about my childhood, because I feel like I reference it a lot. People are like, what was your childhood like?
What was your childhood like?
But like, I will say this, because I kind of want to hit this real quickly before we dive in. I think I've grown up also with, again, a lot of bad teaching about giving. And I think sometimes what can happen in hearing, especially like maybe how we're talking right now, is you start trying to manipulate God, and you can also look at this stuff as I'm giving to get. Right.
Yep.
And again, it just goes back to, again, it's a heart posture.
Yes.
So even the stuff that we're talking about, I don't say never, but the heart isn't, well, I tithe so that the Lord will bless me.
Right.
Or I give extra during a legacy offering so that I get extra clients.
Right.
It is still a heart, because you can be, I believe you can be disobedient and not giving, or not being a good steward and not giving. And I also think that you can be a not good steward and giving, in the sense that you're doing it in a way that you're totally missing the heart of God. You're just wanting the hand. And so I also just want to preface that, again, I think really it's a singular issue of the heart. And I think oftentimes what I've seen, and again, what you said you've seen, I think the fruit and the byproduct of a right posture and a right understanding and a worshipful attitude towards the Lord is that, again, his character is that of one who can't be outgiven. Right. He cares for his children, and he wants to bless us.
He does. Yeah.
And so he wants to, again, it's not the health, wealth, and life, a happy life, but it is, I think he does enjoy blessing and giving his children.
What dad doesn't, right?
And so I think that I think you can hold both of those simultaneously in one hand, and saying that, yes, I'm not trying to manipulate God. I'm not giving to get. This isn't this isn't a manipulative, thing, or it's not the church trying to,
Sure.
It's not about that. But also, I think, I think there is a discipline, and I think you're missing out on a lot in your Christian faith if you do not choose to walk out this discipline in your life. Yep. And so, again, because I've heard a lot of sermons and TV things, and it does, it kind of almost sounds very similar to what we're saying, and then it turns into a this manipulative thing, and that's not this at all.
No, not at all. No.
But again, I will also just testify that I've just seen God and his goodness show up time and time again, especially in the seasons where I've doubted and I still was obedient. You see God's goodness, and you go, oh, okay. And I think sometimes it's the Lord just reminding us of, like, hey, I am, test me, I am faithful in this. I am, so yeah.
It goes against, so, we've talked about Greco-Roman giving, but it goes against now almost like the American dreamish type thing.
Absolutely.
Of, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, be your own person, which is, again, we need work ethic, not saying any of that stuff.
Sure.
But there's that other part of it, like, oh, I only have my life because of the Lord.
Right.
I mean, I worked hard and I've done these things and stuff, but I know it all comes from him.
That's right.
And I only recognize that because of, honestly, because of like, well, my dependence, my relationship and all that. But again, on my giving, they're like, yeah, it's only by God.
And man, again, with the message, you hit quite a few different things. I think, again, want to have awareness that there are people who, whether from the sermon or listening to this, that maybe have, again, a level of skepticism or questions or maybe lack of understanding. I think one of the things that you talked about, which I thought was really good, again, we hit at the beginning, but also the idea of, if you look at your finances, they kind of reflect which kingdom maybe you're more, that you're pouring into or the other.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, I think, I wish there was more of a pride of like,
dude. Yeah. A good biblical, healthy spiritual pride.
Yes. Hey, I'm supporting kingdom initiatives.
Yeah,
and,
dude.
Even beyond just your local church,
bro.
But, amongst other things, right? But there's, I don't want to say the word excuses. There are legitimate things that people will have explanations for, whatever the case might be, of like, hey, like, but what about this, right? And so I just kind of want to speak to some of these because I think they are real in people's lives and just kind of hear, just kind of not a take from you, but just kind of your thoughts. And so there are people who go like, I don't trust churches. Maybe again they there's examples online or whatever the case is, or even if they've had experience in their own life, and say I don't trust churches, or I've had a bad church experience,
right?
And so their posture is still like this, and it's to one of those thoughts. What would come of your thoughts in that?
Man, so I would say, I can relate. We've been in experiences with like that. I can say, you're eventually going to have to find a church that you somewhat trust. You're not going to agree with everything in every church.
Sure.
That's just kind of the way that it is, right?
Totally.
But to find a body of believers that you do feel like you can trust to a point and then give to. I would also say, though, if it is a, again, we hit this just a little bit ago, but there's always been corruption everywhere in every church.
Yeah.
Not in every church. I don't want to say in every church, but like, even like Eli's sons, in 1 Samuel, they were wicked and they were taking the best, for themselves and, like sleeping with the ladies around the temple. I mean, not good, dude. Like that stuff is whack, right?
Right.
So that's kind of been, because again, people are messed up and people are messy. So I think finding a church that, you see that they are doing good in the community, there's a level of trust there. But I'd say if you can't do it, if there's still like, you can't get over it, give to something then.
Yeah.
Give to something that is faith-based.
Yeah.
And I always look at, again, so we, of course, tithe. Then we do legacy. We always give a legacy offering, which is above and beyond. We'll give to other things throughout the year, so on and so forth. But then the organizations that we give to, we want to make sure that they are fiscally responsible as well. Right? I mean, so we release our annual report to show like portions where the money's going and, tell some stories and stuff with it, which we're good storytellers. We should start telling more stories when it comes to that. But I always make sure, okay, so Compassion International, most of the money that we give there is going to go towards the kids. I understand that there's administration costs. Anyone who does not understand there's administration cost needs to understand business needs to understand organizations or needs to understand anything. Like it costs money. Like you can't, unless you're just sending $40 directly to a kid every month, the money's going towards their education. There's all this stuff, right? So it kind of multiplies it. So there has to be an administration cost. When the administration cost is 98% of what you give, that's when you go, I don't know if I should give that anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Or look at like what Outside the Bowl does and how they actually multiply your money with how they set up their super kitchens and then boost the local economy and then like becomes like this incredible symbiotic relationship. So I would say, yeah, if you can't give to a church, then just give somewhere. You like get into that mindset of giving and find a base level and then try to be generous from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I just find it interesting that we, again, to your point, I don't want to ever demean or belittle that there is, bad examples, bad churches, bad, there's been corruption. But again, we like throw the baby out the bathwater, and I would say that I think even the most non-generous stats, the church is an overwhelmingly positive force in so many different areas.
Yes, yeah,
and yeah, like there's real bad stewardship in the government. No one's like, let's stop giving taxes.
Yeah, we kind of have to.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like
I wish we could stop giving taxes.
But like they're inefficient, and we give to that. Or there's there's so many different examples of that. I think that yes, we can hold in both hands. There's some churches that not doing a good job, but most of your local churches, most of the spots you're going to, man, they're doing excellent, incredible work.
Yeah,
most of them are incredibly underfunded, and understaffed and under-resourced, and yet they're still doing the mission that God has called them to do.
Bro. And
I think there is, you can be part of the solution or part of the problem.
Yep,
and
exactly.
So I think by people, I just find it interesting when it's like, hey, well, I don't trust the church. Again, maybe a bad experience, maybe there's some legitimacy there, but the what God has asked you to do as a person isn't reflective of other people's actions, right? We don't say if someone's going, hey, I struggle with alcoholism and getting drunk. And we would say, like, well, but man, someone just put a beer in my hand. I was like, it was okay if someone did it. It was like, no, don't do that. Like, that's not you're still called to obedience in that area.
Sure.
Even if someone else, you know what I mean? Or, hey, treat your neighbor, treat people the way you want to be treated. Well, they treated me really mean. Yeah. Well, still, like, that doesn't mean that now that rule doesn't apply.
Right.
Hey, we're supposed to be a generous people.
Yeah.
We're supposed to give unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Even if maybe you're not, in alignment with every area, or you had bad experience, the Lord's still asking you to give.
Yeah.
And for what are you doing? He's going to ask you like what you did with your finances.
Right.
And so I think that we, maybe give too much credence to that mistrust and whatnot. So
and I'd also say too, like there have been radical misuses of funds
for sure,
by ministries, by churches. I would also say too that if it bleeds, it leads. So people are going to report on the bad stuff, and even then, like a lot of times, what they're reporting on isn't all the way true.
Right.
And we're sitting there believing like, oh my gosh, this church just did this with this money.
Or even like the way things are framed now, it's like this church had $100 million in tithe, and you're like, okay, well, just because they had a lot doesn't mean it was misused.
Yeah.
Like, what did they do with it?
You know
what I mean? It's one thing, yes, some churches are just large and whatever the case is, but that doesn't mean necessarily that there's corruption there. So even that sometimes I'm like, okay, well, where's the smoking gun?
The idea that like big church is bad and small church is good. No, big church and small church doesn't matter. Bad churches are bad and good churches are good.
That's right.
And I know a lot of giant churches that are like really good.
Amen.
That are doing a ton of good for a lot of people, of organizations, so on and so forth. And then there are smaller churches to where, the pastor takes the offering back to his office after everything, takes out what he wants, and then puts the rest in the bank, and nobody knows.
Right.
Totally. So there's like that. There's that both and. So you can't look at the size of something and go, because there's a lot of, and especially a lot of the larger churches are investigated more strictly,
audited
and
governed differently. Yeah, totally,
for sure.
Okay, how about this one? Okay. And this is one I think we hear a lot here. I give my time, and not money. So my time is my tithe.
Right.
What would you say to that?
We give both. That time is. Time is money. Sure, that's great. I think that. Again, it comes down to just the heart issue of it, and having the why don't you want to give your money?
Right.
And actually, for some people, this might sound real controversial, real crazy, but with what they do, I've talked to a lot of like really wealthy people, And for them, it's like, well, time is money. And it's more valuable for the church if I use that time and work and give from it. And I'm like, he's like, so I don't serve on a Sunday because I've just worked 70 hours all week and I give. And I'm like, cool. I get that for sure. Like that's part of like, that's a gift. That's a grace in the body of Christ is generosity, is giving.
Right.
Some people have the ability to make wealth and the free heart to give it. Right. So that's why we actually have a legacy team.
Yeah.
Because it's like these people, that's how they serve that way.
Sure.
And then people will think, oh, well, you're giving them special preference because they give, you had lunch with them or whatever. And I'd be like, did George just do a creative hangout where he fed everybody and they all got cool shirts and stuff? Are we showing that now our creative people preference?
Yeah.
And forgetting does that make
totally,
sense? Like
for sure.
No, you take care of your teams in church. Man, I almost forgot what were we talking about?
Just time versus money.
Time. And I think a lot of times though, that is actually even kind of a cop out because they're like, well, how much time are you giving then?
Yeah.
Are you really giving me 10% of your day, of your week? Like what's the threshold of your time?
Right.
And I don't know. I'd be interested, man, if somebody's actually really doing that, and I don't know, I might change my mind.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you're really freaking valuable.
Yeah.
Just the thing. But if like, oh, you served an hour just like everyone else in this church did.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
But but if you're really going above and beyond, but again, it's not time and money. They're not the same.
Yeah.
And they hold different places in our heart. Which, side note, I mean, time is the only renewable resource we don't get back.
Right.
So isn't it funny that we will even value our money more than our time?
Yeah, for sure.
So
that's good.
But I think, it's a both. It's time, it's talent, and treasure. It's three: time, talent, treasure.
Right.
Time, how much time do you give? Your talent. Now again, not parable of talents because that's actually talking about money, but your talent, your ability, your gifts.
Right.
And then your treasure. Yeah, give it all to the Lord.
Yeah.
Because He gave it to you, so give it back.
What about this idea? And you kind of hit this a little bit in the message, but someone's like, "Hey, I'm in debt. I don't have the margin to tithe or give, whatever the case is. Maybe it's a debt thing.
Sure,
maybe
sure.
it's just, hey, we're living in a really expensive area. Whatever the case. That happens here a lot, right? We're in San Diego.
I don't have margin. It's expensive.
Cities in the world. So just the idea of my budget, debt, all that.
Budget, debt, all of that stuff. So one, I would say that if you are in debt, you need to talk to somebody who understands finances, and glory to God, there are tons of those in the kingdom, in the church.
That's right.
If we got an email from, like at info@myrhythmchurch.com and said, hey, I'm in debt, I need to figure out how to get my finances right, we would cover you for the Financial Peace University. We would connect you with a couple of people that we'd already know in this area that are like good at, debt management or just money management in general. So I'd say one, check yourself on that. But two, I would say give something. If you don't give when you have little, you won't give when you have much.
Come on.
And so I think it's coming back to that thing of I would say tithe. You probably don't have much anyways, but tithe, and then start to if that's your first and best, that's what you give to God.
Yeah.
Personally, this is me. And then start chipping away at your debt.
Right.
And look at the things that you can cut out. Like Aaron and I, for years, because of the lifestyle that we wanted to live, I don't mean like of the rich and famous. I mean, with her being able to be at home a lot with our kids, all different stuff. We drove hand-me-down cars. We didn't have cable. That's back when people had cable, didn't have cable. Like we cut out as much as we could, and we didn't go out to eat. A family vacation was when we found a deal on like a hotel Hampton Inn Suites, and we went down, and then we had like a dinner at the Sizzler. I don't know,
Sure.
but that was it. And so not the Sizzler, I forget whatever it's called. But anyways, shout out Sizzler. But like we just adjusted to those things, right? And tried to avoid a life of debt, and actually we're able to give more in these different seasons. So again, it comes back to like, a bad budgeter is going to be a broke tither. But if you're already in that spot, I think already working in to your new budget that you give.
Yeah.
So when Aaron and I did our budget before we were married, it was always 10%. So I never looked at what my total gross was or net or whatever. It was after I give my tithe, this is what we have to spend on rent. It's what we have to spend on cars, all like so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think again, it's a great conversation about stewardship. And again, I'm not, a lot of people have different opinions about Dave Ramsey, but I think I love the way he thinks about it and talks about it, especially from a faith background. But this idea of like, okay, well, you're a steward of God's money, right?
Yep.
And so it's a proverb. So, but you know, the slave is the borrower is slave to the lender.
Yeah.
And so, you know, being someone who does not get in, I don't like being in debt because I don't want to not be able to use God's money the way I need to.
Sure.
So just in the fact of you being in debt proves that, like, man, you can't tithe the way that, you know.
Right.
So, being someone who's a good steward with your money and prioritizing, getting out of debt. But I also think that, again, to your point, when we do our budget, the first line item before we even get to mortgage, rent, debt payments, whatever the case is tithe. Yeah. And so that's the first thing, and that doesn't change. And then you have the rest to play with to get to where you need to be. And then to your point, again, too, I'm probably just reiterating all you're saying, but it's like, what do you want to sacrifice? Yeah. You know, and I think it's interesting. I won't say funny. It's interesting that the thing we're often willing to sacrifice is Lord's money.
We give the Lord.
And we won't sacrifice, again, cable or coffee or, again, down here in California, right? There's so many different things that we want to keep up with the Joneses. We want to keep up with certain things. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so you'd rather keep those things going than to prioritize. It's all prioritization. It's like, hey, okay, what are you prioritizing first? Yeah. So if you prioritize, you know, tithing, being a good steward with your money, getting out of debt, so you save, all that different stuff, and then all the other things. If again, you've said this, I don't know if you said this weekend, but you said it before. It's like, if you were to look at someone's bank statement or their budget or whatever, you can see what they value most.
100%.
So if tithe is at the bottom, it's just a mirror, right? Yeah. Versus, hey, it is at the top. I want to get a debt. I want to prioritize all that stuff, and then, you know, all the other kind of expenditures. I think that it's a peek into your heart. And
it is a peek into your heart.
What you value and what you prioritize.
Yeah. I think it needs to be a base level for everyone giving in some way, shape, or form. Definitely. And I would say, too, that you have to know yourself. This is kind of just financial wisdom in general. You have to know yourself. And there is so much out there right now on TikTok and on Instagram on how you do this and how you become wealthy and how you do these things. Right. And I would say that, again, no shade to anybody out there, but we are far more simpler than we understand when it comes to money. Right. A lot of us don't math all that well. Yes. Right. So like a Dave Ramsey is probably a safe bet for most people on how to do it. Right. Some people are a little bit more strategic and their brains think a certain way. So they're able to they've got tons of debt, but the way they manage it and move it and business it and all that different stuff, they're like, I'm using the bank's money to do the like, that's great. I can't do that. Like my mind is like, let me dig into 1 Thessalonians 3.
And I would tell you by looking at the statistics, most of you are.
Most you can't, yeah. Those are unicorns. For sure. Those are unicorns. Yep. And you can maybe learn some stuff from them. Sure. So you have to find out where you are. So Dave Ramsey, I'm not an all cash person. We were for a long time, but I know how to manage credit for points, but that's it. I'm not like, I'm going to borrow from the bank to do this and then rock that. And because I would start getting confused and all of a sudden be like, hey, wait a minute, how did I come up with this thing? You know, I can have a car and I can, pay a rent or mortgage and mess with the credit card system and take a vacation off that. Totally. But then that's me. For sure. And I know that, and that's beyond. But I've got friends, man, they're like, we've got tax shelters here. I've got 3 homes in the dude and da-da-da. And you're like, good on you. Yeah. That's beyond me. But if that's you, then rock that.
And I think it comes down to the fruit of it. To where if you're the person who's going, I'm in debt, so I can't tithe, then it's like, well, I don't know if the fruit of it is really working for you, buddy. You know?
Exactly.
So, man, I obviously this is
there's so many different things.
There's
There's a lot of
there's
meat
a lot
left on the bone here, but man, I want to end here because this is where you ended in the Sunday message. I thought was just so good. But you said you ended with this. You basically said how greed can't stop the gospel.
Yeah,
which I just thought was just such a good, perspective of all this whole conversation is really about us being the body, being a part of the church. Bless you, James.
that was a sneeze. For those of you not realizing, somebody sneezed in the other office.
But it's about it's about we're the body.
Yep.
Our role is the body, and that you said we get to. God has given us an opportunity to, I forget the way you phrase it, basically be a part of what He's doing. Seeing the gospel advance, seeing people's lives transform, being the hands and feet of Jesus, meeting people's needs, all different stuff. If you're a person who's just like, hey, you know what, their posture is this, and you just, it's not for you. It's not for you. But the good news is that God wants us to participate, but doesn't need us. His provision. It's one of my favorite. It's been a verse that's been just kind of in my spirit for the last couple of years. But it is. He owns the cattle on a thousand
hills. Yeah.
He doesn't need us.
No.
We just get to. But it's almost better because He doesn't need us. But He's saying, "Hey, but you get." It's like the player. It's like playing sports. And I used to play sport, and you get that tall, the kid on the team is a little bit older.
Yeah,
he could kind of just win the game on his own.
Yeah.
He didn't really need you on the team, but he would pass you the ball, let you score, and you're like, "Yo, I got to help us win."
Yeah,
even though He didn't need us. And it's like this. It's like this idea that the Lord is allowing us to be participants. In the gospel being spread, and people's lives being changed, and people's eternities being changed. And He doesn't need us, but He allows us to play a part.
Bro,
and greed can't stop it.
Greed can't stop it. I want to jump on that sports analogy and then jump back into the other thing because I think that's really brilliant. It's that thing of when the Lord invites us not only to serve in the kingdom but to give. It's that thing of, okay, would you have wanted to be on the championship team and get a ring, but you sat on the bench all season long? Would you still feel good about wearing that ring?
Right.
Would you still be like, we were the champions?
Right.
And be like, how many points did you score? None.
Right.
How much time did you play?
Right.
Well, none. Yeah. I practiced. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But to be the one to say, yeah, man, I'm the one that dished Jordan the ball.
I'm on court,
dude. I got the assist. Whatever. I got to
Yeah.
do some stuff, whether it's just on a small
Right.
or large scale. Like I would want to win a championship ring knowing I was in there. I contributed.
And you got to enjoy the fruit.
Yes.
You said this a while ago, so it was a different message, but I don't verbatim, but you said something to the effect of like, you were saying something to like, well, if the church does this, but you didn't give to it, you don't get to participate in the fruit.
I did. Yeah.
But there is an element of like, how do you get to feel a certain way about those families getting Christmas presents at Christmas market when you gave to it?
When you gave to it,
you get to feel a different way at Blessed Local or what, you know what I mean?
Sure.
The Blessed Locals or the when we had I forget the Pregnancy Resource Center. I forget what their name is now. But like when you see that those impacts and those lives being changed and all that different stuff, and you gave to it.
Yeah.
You not only, I think from a kingdom impact, you receive the fruit of that differently, but also you get to feel like, oh, I actually was a part of that. So you get to, God is giving you an opportunity to experience fruit, taste fruit that you wouldn't have gotten to taste and to be a part of if He didn't give you the opportunity.
Right.
It's
that thing of, okay, we've seen hundreds of salvations. I don't have the number yet, or I do have it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Hundreds of salvations this last year,
right?
From people like sitting in our seats, and man, that's part of what Legacy gave to. That's part of what Legacy did last year was bought seats,
right,
so that we could fit more people in.
Absolutely.
And like, wow, I contributed to. Man, if we just saw money the way the Lord intends us to see it as seed,
right?
It's just a tool. It's a resource. That's all it is.
Totally.
And we were then like freely sowing it, smartly, like intentional in all of it. Again, it's that thing of we're invited into it. The Lord doesn't need us to do it,
right?
But it does. It's pretty amazing though that we get to go, man, we can contribute to this.
Yeah.
And I would much rather that than because this is what people do. I heard a pastor say this once. He says, just because we're a generous church doesn't mean you're generous. I was like, wow. I might be able to say that year 10, maybe.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like the same thing as Blessed Locals. Like, it's like, you may like being a part of a generous church, but if you're not giving here and giving generously, then you're not generous. The church is generous.
Right.
Because of how much we get back to these other things, but doesn't mean you are.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like that hit me too. I was like, dang, I want to be able to be on that kick of like, no, we're a generous church, and I'm able to be generous to it and with it.
And I think it's such a hopeful way to end. I thought it was a hopeful way to end your message, and even I think it's made this conversation.
Because greed can't stop it.
Because it's like, I think because there's so many stats, right, about how giving has dropped, and I think obviously I think from a teaching standpoint, it's like to illustrate a point, you give these stats and whatnot. But I think there can be almost this like, oh man, well, dang, are we winning?
Yeah.
And it's like, greed can't stop the church. And again, to your point in the message, what for a season looked to like greed, Felix was controlling, Paul and whatnot. It actually, God was setting up something bigger.
Yeah.
And
God works all things the good of those who
I'll
love
just
him.
tell you from a personal hunch, I'm just seeing certain trends and certain things, especially kind of in the area I focus on, right? Christian artists and different things. But I see a trend where in a season where we thought it was scarce, in a season where we thought the Lord wasn't moving and we were losing influence and losing impact, I think the Lord is doing something different.
Come on, bro.
And I want to, again, back to that pride.
Yeah.
I want to have a pride in this next season when the fruit is blossoming.
Yeah.
To know I invested in that.
I was in that. Yeah.
And
great.
And it's a reminder that, okay, yes, it seems a certain way now, or whatever the case is, or we see other things flourishing, other business or other types of people flourishing, whatever the case might be. But the Lord doesn't. He owns 1,000 on the cattle hill.
Yeah.
He's
dude.
not.
Yeah.
He's not surprised.
No, he's not.
He's not taken off guard.
No.
He's not like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like he's not. And greed can't stop the gospel.
Greed can't stop the gospel.
The battle's already won.
Yeah.
And like you said, I want to be on the court. I want to be participating in it, and I want to be able to, again, when we see the fruit and we see how God does turn it for good, I want to know and have a peace about
I contributed.
I
was a part of it.
And I was obedient. Yeah. So good.
Come on, dude.
Come on, man. That was great.
We went for a while.
Yeah.
It was a bit.
That might have been our longest one. But
money.
Talk to us where we're going next week.
Oh, next week. Paul, it's interesting. So Paul's entered into a new season this last couple of years, right? A new season of ministry for him, where doesn't look the same. It doesn't look like him going to these churches and preaching in these cities and all this different stuff now. He's now under guard.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this idea of like, man, it's a whole new season of life. He is under guard, but he's still able to keep advancing the gospel. Yeah. So what does that look like in our lives? So we're going to tease that out.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Hey, if you made it to the end, I will admit, in the middle, I was thinking, what if I did cream? I was like, no.
Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. $1 bills, y'all.
But I was like, man, I don't know.
Shout out Wu-Tang. Shout out Wu-Tang.
But man,
yeah.
If you didn't make it to the end, let us know in the comment section. Man, if you have any questions, like we understand this is a topic that is, can be near and dear to people's hearts. We want to know in the comment section.
Yeah.
We want, great conversation down there.
Or any more questions.
Or even just questions or things that maybe a little more sensitive.
Yeah.
You can email us at info@myrhythmchurch.com. And we see all that stuff coming in. We care, and we want to pastor people through that stuff. Those are legitimate questions. We want to wrestle with that together. Yep. Absolutely. But thanks for tuning in with us. We'll see you next week on If I Had More Time.